This is important because the president is directly involved. And I will explain to you what it means. What this means essentially is we're having a situation where what is the news? Well, the news is essentially that Ghislaine Maxwell, interestingly enough, was interviewed, as you all know. And after the interview, she basically was told that, not so much that she was told, but basically it would appear that she is actually going to be going to a different facility. She has been transferred to a lower security prison facility. Well, looks like interesting news, right? I mean, why do we care? Why do we care whether or not she's getting moved, right? No, you care. You want to care, and I'll tell you why you want to care. You want to care because at the end of the day, what's really happening here is there would appear to be a situation with Maxwell, and potentially there might be a potential deal in the works. And that's the concern. The concern is that there is a deal in the works for Maxwell. There's a deal for Maxwell. Well, hold on. You probably heard the news, okay? This is not what it's about. This is a bigger topic. This is a much bigger topic. It's a much bigger topic because the concern is there is a story around the MAGA situation. This is a MAGA potential situation. Why is she being moved? Why is she being moved now? Is there a deal in the work? You know, what do we care about this woman at the end of the day, right? What do we care about Ghislaine Maxwell? Well, you need to care because it ties in to a potential risk tied to Trump, and obviously Trump is tied into everything. And I'll explain to you some of the things that he did yesterday were kind of interesting. Something that you would think that what are you thinking about? What are you doing? The question is right now is what's going on physically, particularly, and why is this important? Now, let me tell you. So basically, she's being moved to a lower security prison facility. 2 days after, she had a 2-day interview with Todd Blanche, as you know, in Florida. And Todd Blanche previously worked as a president criminal defense lawyer, just sending that out there. And she was transferred. And the facility she's being transferred, I don't know if you remember this lady, but she's going with this high-profile inmate. So basically, I wouldn't say she's going to a camp, but basically she's going where the Theranos founder, I don't know if you remember her. She was Elizabeth Holmes. She was sentenced in 2022 to 11 years in prison. That's where she's going, right? And that lady is also getting 11 years after being found guilty of running a scheme, the blood testing company. So she's over there with her. And it's what it's called a low security prison in Tallahassee. Okay. Well, this coincidental that she met with the attorney last week, and now she's getting a much better treatment. What do we care about all this? Hold on. Let me build my story because you need to understand that there's a lot at play here. There's a tremendous amount of items. First of all, you need to understand also that the reason why this is kind of a questionable situation, why this transfer matters, is because there's speculation that the relocation may have been linked to an ongoing DOJ efforts to secure a corporation. I mean, it's extremely, there's a lot of coincidence, and when coincidence after coincidence after coincidence, you got to wonder what the heck is really going on here. And by the way, and I'll talk about that, another coincidence is we haven't heard at all from Pam Bondi at all, which is the boss of the person of Blanche that actually went to, she's an attorney general, and she went to investigate her. So she repeatedly answered questions about 100 individuals linked to Epstein, and probably Trump is involved in that, is listed. And obviously, our legal team is saying, okay, we're talking, but we want something. You got to give me something. And I know if you've dealt with lawyers, but basically, it's all about making deals. Nothing wrong with it. That's their job. But basically, what we're doing is that we are making deals. We're making deals all day long here. And the reason you want to do this is because they want to basically let her free, right? Or do something with her. I mean, she's not going to say anything for no reason. And as I said before, keep in mind that this woman, when she went to court, she didn't say anything at all apart from the fact that I don't know anything, so therefore I'm not going to rat on anyone because I wasn't involved to begin with. So don't come and tell me, that I don't know what's going on. And that's the reason why she doesn't want to. She wants absolution. She doesn't want to. She wants immunity because now they're asking her. Well, I want you to tell us everything. Well, technically I didn't know anything. Otherwise, I would have 30 years. And I got, by knowing what I knew, I had 20 years. So imagine if I tell you everything that I know. So now I'm going to get, 50 years. So basically, she's out there doing her thing, and Pamandi has disappeared. So what's unusual about this transfer? What's unusual about this transfer is this. It's done by the Bureau of Prisons. What do I mean by that? Well, the transfer was considered unusual because it was executed directly by prison bureau staff, not by the usual U.S. Marshal Service. I mean, I know we're getting into the weeds here, but you need to understand that if this is happening, then what's going on? Why are they doing that? Okay. And obviously, right away, so it's bypassing the standard protocol, which has raised question about possible hidden motives. You have to understand this thing is starting to sound very fishy. There's a deal in the works. Don't forget, just want to remind you that they have fired Maureen Comey. Okay? Maureen Comey was the prosecutor for this thing, and she was fired just like that. Trump decides to fire, and he fired he fired somebody else this weekend, and I'll talk about it after. But you're going to realize that it all ties in together in a very kind of weird way. So basically, she's out there, and she's basically moving to a new facility, and this transfer matters because this is unusual. This usually doesn't happen, and frankly, it's happening with not too much fuss or much. Have you heard anything? Right? You haven't heard anything. Nobody's complaining about it. Although the victims and the legal groups denounced the move, labeling it as a betrayal and a hint of a cover-up. They're saying, hey, what's going on here? The lady is out there. Okay? Hey, man. P-man. Okay. So the next thing is, so the victims and the legal advocacy group is denouncing the wave, labeling it a betrayal or hint of a cover-up. They argue that relocating a convicting sex trafficker to a more comfortable club-fed environment with dorm housing program, easier conditions is inappropriate given the severity of her crimes. So some sort of deal was made here. Okay? Now she wants a better deal, obviously, right? Because what she wants, she wants out. She literally wants out. She does not want to stay there. She basically has said that I want to be freed, and I want, and if you want me to talk, I want to be able to do what I want to do, and I don't want to be involved in this case. And I know lots of things, but because if I tell you I know all these things, and then I'm involved, and then I go back to jail. So I can't really understand, and I can't talk about these things. Okay. So the issue, therefore, is okay. But so, what is the MAGA angle here? What is it? What do we care about this case so much? Well, because if the deal is being made, and the issue is, well, what could she come up with? That's a different topic. The point is, it's an important topic enough for MAGA. And what's strange is that, well, MAGA for Trump, if we think that he's involved, why are you pushing for these things to be released? And this is the perverse part of it. The perverse, no, excuse for the wording, but basically what it means is that the child of Trump, which is basically Trump's child, which is MAGA, might turn on him. Why? Well, I will tell you, the MAGA people are pretty pissed at this. They are very upset as the fact that you would think, well, it's unimportant, right? It's a bigger battle. There's more other things going on. You know, why are we disrupting the media framing? What about Clinton, what he did? But it does matter for the MAGA people because, and what's amazing is that this thing was created by Trump himself. Can't stop Trump, right? Maybe what's stopped Trump is Trump himself, MAGA, his child. Because within the MAGA value, there is something called as accountability. MAGA's rallying cry is against the elite abusing power. President Trump, Kia said, didn't know who Epstein really was. Well, he didn't really know. Yeah, he knew him. Did he really know? I mean, we'll see. And maybe, but then does it mean, did he partake in any kind of activities? That's the second level. But the point is that he probably didn't know. He met the guy, and a lot of people, I mean, there's lots of lawyers, lots of people. He was having a party. How do you know everyone? Okay, so that you may have a point there, Kia. But the point is, the MAGA people are all about the epitome of elite abuse and secrecy. That was the idea. We were going to drain the swamp. Let's drain the swamp. I'm coming in. My name is Donald Trump. I'm coming in, and I'm out of the institution, so I'm going to be with you, I'm going to be for you, and that's why a lot of people voted for him, because the guy is, he might be a billionaire, but he's not one of them, he's one of us. He understands us. That was the most amazing thing when he got elected, that they said, but this guy's a billionaire, why are people voting for him? Well, this guy from Pittsburgh voting for him? Well, because he had and that's the reason why, believe it or not, that a lot of people on social media, I mean, that people are listening to YouTube more than Netflix or more the channels and the news. Why? Because you want to have an unfiltered vision of what's happening. You want to know what is going on, and that's an important thing. You want to know what's happening, right? He made his own money and didn't steal it from the taxpayer. Well, that's true. He made his own money. Dan is right. So the point is, you want to hear, like, what's going on and but what people really think. And people were tired of these political elite that basically, because at the end of the day, they're making their own money, they're doing great for themselves. What about you, right? And that's the thing. So the thing with the MAGA is the opportunity to prove he's not one of them by pursuing full transparency. And he comes around, I'm telling the way it is, and that's why people love Trump. And avoiding hypocrisy. MAGA supporters often call out the DOJ, the FBI, the courts, accusation of double standards, these people that come in and get out, right? January 8, 6, strategic liability. So basically they want full accountability. And Trump was, guys, I mean, why? Why you want, because don't forget, originally, and this is where the Pam Bondi situation comes in, will MAGA ever look behind the curtain? No, they want to look behind the curtain, because right now, let me tell you, what is going on is that they want a full investigation. They want to know what's going on. They want to actually, they want to have they want her to testify on Congress, which is a wild thing to say, because the Republicans are stuck. The Republicans are stuck. Why are they stuck? Because on one hand, they need to respond to the MAGA people themselves. When I say the Republicans are the people that want to be elected, well, you got to, these are people who are going to put you in power, that are going to vote for you, and they want to know. So on one hand, you want to say it, you want to come out, you want to talk about it, but at the same time, you've got to be careful because it could come and bite you, because when this thing comes out, so when this thing is going to come out, it's going to be very difficult to control it. And how is it going to come out? Well, she's coming to Congress. Congress has the right to have her come in and talk about things. The thing is, she does not want to be. She does not want to be. She doesn't want to be indicted for something else. Remember, her position is essentially, when she went in trial, because when people went to trial, they said, well, what happened? How come we don't know anything about her? How come she doesn't know anything? What about the list? What about the videos? And, there was something going on. P. Diddy did it. And, where is it? The thing is, it was purposely done for a lawyer, although she did get 20 years, to really just go around and talk about her in a way that she didn't know anything. But now they wanted to say, well, tell us everything that happened so you know all this. Yeah, but I don't want to be indicted for that. Well, you saw this guy doing this with this girl or whatever, and you never mentioned that before. Oh, so you allowed that case again, so we're adding another 20. Earth is a flat. 20 years you're going to add to my sentence? I don't want to do that. But at the same time, the Republicans are saying, we're going to let this woman out there talking about what? Maybe she says that Trump was there, Trump knew. How do we manage something like that? And that, my friend, is the problem. And it's a big problem, because if in the process of her talking, and even before she's talking, you have the illusion there's going to be some sort of deal being made, then we could be in major trouble. We could be in major trouble, because now the MAGA people, don't forget, the Democrats are sitting here and they're waiting, they're salivating, they say, okay, let's see what happens now, because we definitely want to know what happened, because I know I didn't do anything. Let's see what happens. And guess what? Even if she never comes out, that's even worse for you guys, because now it looks like you're doing, and obviously this thing going on in the background, because she's going to a Club Fed, it's called, right? Very leisurely, well, you're in jail, but, it's not like you're in St. Quentin. It's different, right? So some kind of deal is being made. She's going to say something's going to happen. The question is this: how the heck are you going to manage the process if at some point you lose MAGA? And Trump, he realizes, oh my God, I created this thing, and it has a life of its own now. It's alive and it's doing its own thing, and I can't control it, because I don't know what this woman is going to say or not say. Now, I'm assuming that he doesn't know anything. He hasn't done anything. Like you said, I don't. That's a lie that I was even mentioned anywhere, which is not really true, because even Pam Bondi at some point said that, well, he's mentioned and it doesn't mean anything. He's just, Pam Bondi. There's another reason something is going on. Pam Bondi is the Attorney General. She has notably remained out of public spotlight. You haven't heard her at all. I mean, you hear the Republicans, you hear everyone talking in Congress, and you hear Maxwell obviously talking to her assistant Blanche, but you haven't heard from Pam Bondi at all. She hasn't testified or spoken publicly. Pam Bondi has not held a press conference or appeared before Congress to directly address the Epstein file controversy, despite repeating calls. And here's another angle that is quite interesting. Why isn't she saying anything? Because Trump told her there is no deal. Remember when she was sitting together? They were all sitting together and they were talking. And somebody asked about the Epstein file. Said, "Well, let me talk to you about." And he says, "No, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Why are we talking about this thing all the time?" There are plenty of document or testimony is not needed. I mean, Siamadi is right. I mean, there's a lot of documents, and Pam Bondi basically hasn't testified. She had faced backlash over unfulfilled claims. In February, she told Fox News that she had the Epstein client list, quote unquote, sitting on my desk. But then in the DOJ memo, later denied that such a list existed. They say, well, what, is there a list or is no list? Now, this is important. This is extremely important because now it looks like there's some sort of a controversy around it. What is it that we don't want to talk about? Is Trump involved? Because if he's involved and is one thing, but if he's involved in hiding, that's a second thing. Unfortunately, what's happening, I think, Trump is basically saying to everyone, guys, you gotta let me work here. I got a lot of work to do. I'm working on the tariffs, right? I'm working on the economy, which, by the way, might be faltering a little bit. I'm trying to get the stock market up, which is up. Trying to get the dollar the way it is. I have to do all the tariffs, right? I got to get rid of Powell. I got to make sure Israel doesn't do its thing and it doesn't kind of control. I want to make sure inflation stays in check. Now, Russia, by the way, yesterday Russia obviously said something and Trump sent 2 submarines. We will talk about that later on. So basically what he's trying to do is let me work. Pam, just tell them there's nothing. And obviously when you work with Trump, you got to do what he's telling you to do. And she did. And the MAGA people didn't like it. They said, well, so which one is it? Is there something or is nothing? Well, my boss told me to not talk about it anymore. No, I mean, she didn't say that actually, but basically that's what he did. And she kind of went away. I mean, in July, it indicates on July 9th, attended by Bondi, Deputy AG, FBI Director Patel, Dan Bongino, I don't know if you know him, where internal decision to withhold files sparked resignation threats and internal GOP outrage. Something happened in that meeting on July 9th where they said, well, what are you doing now? No. Our initial preference to documents on the desk was clarified to mean general case files, not an elusive client list. Official warned much of the material remains sealed due to victim privacy and grand jury. I made a mistake. I didn't mean a client list, like a list of the people that did it to. No, it's not what I meant. Well, the point is, you said it, and now you're pulling back, and now we don't hear from you, right? And now this girl is being offered a deal. This woman is being offered a deal in a great place. What's going on? And unfortunately, coincidentally, Trump is there sitting there. He's saying, "Oh my God, this is out of control." In fact, at one point he said, "Well, you MAGA people are listening to the Democrats. You're getting taken by the Democrats by fault. You shouldn't be doing that. This is wrong," right? So everything is getting entangled, and it's important for you to understand. And I'll tell you what. You see that little black swan there? What we're looking for is anything that potentially, and please join the channel because I want you to understand what's happening and how it will impact you. Let me tell you, if that woman comes out and start talking, we are not going to hear about anything else. We are not talking about anything else apart from that case. You're not going to forget the tariffs and everything else. And obviously, what's happening is the international, all these countries that are getting hit with tariffs, the Democrats, all these people are sitting and waiting to see, is this going to impact Trump? Because the only thing that could hurt Trump, and not these people, not the countries and the businesses, he's used to that. What could hurt him is himself, including his child, which is MAGA, and anything that he might have done, obviously. Right? Because basically what they're just waiting to see, okay, let's wait for the mistakes so we could jump in. What do you think is going to happen to Japan, for example, if that woman goes over there and she says, yeah, Trump was involved and I can't believe it, although it's hard to believe because she was interviewed by this guy, so who's a Trump appointee, and he's the assistant attorney general, the deputy general, so unlikely, right? And Trump wouldn't be that stupid, but who knows? Close enough. The thing is, as they get together and start talking, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to feel the pressure. And Japan is going to say, that $600 billion deal We talked about, because we haven't signed anything, I was supposed to invest some money in the US, 550 billion, sorry. And you said that, this was like a bonus for us to get 15% tariff. So let's renegotiate that. Where's Trump? Well, he's busy responding all the other questions. So, well, you know what? Let him. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about it later. So forget the 550 billion, and then Europeans going to do the same because a lot of these deals haven't been signed. So this is what's important for you, is because that woman impacts Trump, which impacts everything down the line. And I'm telling you right now, Trump is holding in his hands at least 10 major, in which we review on a daily basis, but he's managing literally everything. Let's put it this way. Yesterday alone, and maybe the pressure, and don't forget, that's a lot of pressure. Think somebody doesn't like you at work or whatever. When you have the entire world don't like you, it's pressure. And my concern is Trump might be wavering a little bit. Why? Well, look what happened this weekend. Basically, what Trump did, the numbers, the employment numbers came out. Not to get too complicated, but it appears to be, based on those numbers, that the economy is weakening. Aha! You see, Trump, your economy is not doing well. Now, of course, this is perverse in a way, because if the economy is not doing well, Trump wants the rates to be reduced, then he's going to go to Powell and he's going to say, listen, look, the economy is not doing well. You've got to reduce the rate. So I won. I mean, we're not in a recession. It's just some numbers were off, and yeah, it's down to weak. I don't know what's going on out there, if you could let me know. But basically, it would appear that there is a bit of a problem with the employment. And what does Trump do? He fires Erica McEnther. She's basically he fired her because there was only 73,000 jobs added, and it's revised down from 250,000. So we have a problem. He accused her, without evidence, of manipulating the employment data politically to inflate the figures before the 2024 election. At that time, claiming there was a revision of 818,000 versus 112,000. You say basically they said that last year, that she said we equated 800,000 during the 2024 election, which obviously Biden said, you see, we're doing great. And then it was revised later on to be actually only 112,000. That happened once before. So now with this thing, she's firing her. But if you think about it, but don't do that, because at the end of the day, she's basically making it easier for you to get your rate cut. Okay? So obviously this is a whole different situation, because now but the point is Trump might be under pressure. And then he also threatened, in fact, and I don't think he threatened, I think he actually sent 2 submarines over the weekend. Trump is sending a nuclear submarine message to Russia. He won't be cowed by nuclear blackmail. And what he did, he basically sent 2 missiles because of the highly provocative statement of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev. I have ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions. What do you mean it's not accurate? The number is actually got revised after. No, I'm talking about the 808. I'll send a link later on, but 800. She had said last year 818,000, and I've got that from good source. And then it got downgraded. It got revised way up, and people say, "Oh my God, we thought we had new numbers and we didn't." Reply to me separately, and I'll send you the link. You'll see. The commander-in-chief, basically, so what Trump is doing right now, he's sending 2 submarines because Medvedev basically a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. So basically, the commander in chief is responding to Medvedev online threats more recently that Mr. Trump truncated deadline to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine with a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country, meaning that Russia is threatening directly. But hold on. Medvedev, I don't know if you know the guy, but he was a president for a while. He's basically the mouthpiece of Russia. He's not really the president. He doesn't. It's not. Basically, it's not Putin talking. It's the other guy. He doesn't count. Okay. But the point is, Trump reacted to him, and the reason Trump is reacting to him, which is another thing that Trump is working on, and he wants to be left alone. He is trying to get the Russia to back off Ukraine, and what he's doing to do that, he had to go to India and basically telling India and China, if you do business with Russia, I am going to hit you with the tariffs. What are you doing? I mean, well, I'm being president, I'm pushing for these things, and these things got to stop bothering. It's just that it feels now, I mean, it's one thing to tell India, stop bothering Russia, stop buying oil from Russia, otherwise I'm going to give you 200% tariffs, not 235%. But it's another thing to fire that woman because supposedly imagine she falsified the numbers. That you don't like the numbers, but the numbers are good because now you could get your reduced in rate. But the point is, Trump might be losing it in this process. He's going over and we'll see. And if on top of that, this MAGA things, because he knows what he knows, only him knows, then if we lose Trump, the issue with that is that you have to realize that because of this way of managing, he manages everything. Literally, he does the negotiation, he does everything, he does the threatening, he does the firing. Suppose he's gone because of MAGA, or when I mean gone, meaning that he loses the power, meaning that the Republican lose Congress because of that, then you lose a lot. You lose a lot of things here. You lose you lose the power to basically control the country, or manage the country, or understand what's happening, and that what I think is dangerous. And this is where this case is actually very important, because what it does is that it creates the uncertainty around that case. And the fact that this woman just got a deal, she got a deal. She's basically walking around to Club Fed. And that is a big problem right now. Okay? Now, when I say the MAGA angle, right? What's going on with the MAGA people? Why is this a problem? You need to understand that within the MAGA organization, there's this concern that they are trying to, they want to end the Epstein follies, right? Like Bondi and Patel. Why can't Pam Bondi and Patel, was the guy at the FBI, just come out and talk about it? Why are we avoiding? Why is it not all coming out, right? Basically, the question is any grown up in Washington? I mean, why can't you? Why the House is breaking early this summer to avoid the votes on forcing the disclosure? I mean, they want it. I want it. I want to see. I want to hear it. But they, and so when I'm talking about the Attorney General Pam Bondi and the FBI Director Kash Patel now insist the files could contain plenty of child porn that Epstein downloaded, not a client list. We don't want to see this. You really don't want to see all that stuff. But frankly, the Democrats are loving it right now because they want to see this and no, we want it. So Trump is embattled at that, and that I think he's more worried about anything else. I don't think he's worried about India or Russia because nothing is going to happen there. I mean, he's acting boisterous, but doesn't mean that anything is going to happen. But I think he's concerned about MAGA, and you need to understand that the MAGA situation. And when I say MAGA, I am talking, for example, At one point, Ted Cruz said that there was relatively little information in the file that were released. And then there was a bombshell because Pam Bondi accused the New York FBI office of withholding significant part of the Epstein file. So what's happening, they're fighting with each other as far what's in the files. And whenever that happens, I mean, there is something. And nobody wants to be left holding the bag. You need to realize that Trump himself, I mean, Trump is supporting Pam Bondi right now, but watch her very closely. What are the signs that we need to watch for if there's a problem? Well, first of all, if she gets fired, that's a problem. But then again, they're going to say, but why? But then again, she knows a lot of things too. And you have to be careful. It is not an exaggeration to say that there is not a single revelation in the first 200-page binder. Everybody wanted to see the binder. Remember? They released the binder. They looked at it. There's nothing in there. What happened? Well, I guess there's nothing. And the rest we really can't show it. But yeah, there's a tremendous amount of interest in those memos. People want to know what's going on. Even Joe Rogan, which was one of President Trump's most influential supporters, he drew a line in the sand last week over the administration handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. You said there was something. She said there was something. And then she said there was nothing. And then you said, let's not talk about it. Let's move on. It's not going to go away. The reason it can't go away is because the Democrats are saying, no, it's not going to be like that. We're going to release it, right? You want to release it, right? And obviously the Republicans can't say, no. They're going to say, yeah, of course I want to release it. Yeah, let's come back. So then it has to be released. The thing is, what can be released? What can you show? What is it possible for you to show exactly what there is in there? And why was Maureen Comey let go? Okay, so I think the potential impact on Donald Trump, right, is major, right? Because there could be direct allegations, there could be media and public perception, there could be civil liability, and probably more than not, something is going to happen. No, so what can Congress do, right? What can they come up? Well, basically, Congress, because Congress makes the laws. Remember, they have broad investigating powers under the Constitution, and they can compel the release of documents related to Ghislaine. They could say, we want to see it. What can they? Well, they could show the prosecution records, non-privileged, indictments, sentencing memorandum, trial exhibits. They could subpoena the Department of Justice, DOJ internal communication. What did you know? What was going on? They could invoke deliberative process privilege. They could bring in the Epstein Maxwell client or co-conspirator information. Any DOJ or FBI record identify alleged client or co-conspirators. They could bring investigating privilege. They could the sealing orders from the court. FBI files. I mean, they could seal court filing and deposition, right? They could say, unseal it, I want to see it. They could show the Bureau of Prisons record. They have a tremendous amount of power. One thing that it cannot force without a legal battle, they can't see the grand jury materials, attorney-client communications, classified intelligence, and foreign surveillance. So there's certain things that they can't do, but they certainly can do a lot. And are they going to do a lot? They have no choice now but to do it. And you got to wonder, well, how did we get in this situation? Well, you got in this situation because you got elected to do these things. You got elected because you said, "This is what I do. This is the way. This is what we offer our people that voted for us. So we're going to do it." Now, is it possible? Is it possible that there could be clemency in the process, right? For to talk about it. Yes. And one reason that you could tell that there's going to be clemency is that they fired Maureen Comey. Maureen Comey was a lead prosecutor in the Maxwell case. She led the federal prosecution of Epstein. of Ghislaine Maxwell and Sean Combs, PDD, by the way, which Trump says that he wants to pardon. Interesting. She was deeply involved in trial strategy, evidence presentation, sentencing recommendation. She did all these things. A continued presence gave credibility and institutional memory to the case. She was deeply involved. It had to be her. Would you believe the no, the reason I'm saying it had to be her, she is the daughter of James Comey, the former FBI director fired by Trump. He fired the father and he fired the daughter at the same, I mean, not at the same time, but, when it's the same period. It's amazing. And obviously, so what does that have to do with Maxwell? But she knows what went on, right? Clemency would require institutional cooperation. Even if a president grants clemency, the DOJ office of the pardon and the DOJ office of the pardon attorney and the Bureau of Prison, local U.S. Attorney office, wait in or to execute the administrative process. They have to be involved. So having Comey in place meant a high-profile internal critic. And say, well, what are we doing? Do you realize that this woman did? No, I don't think we should do this. This is wrong. Do not do this. Do not let her out, blah, blah, blah. And he says, I can't have her there. I cannot have her there. Well, and she was fired without cause under Article 2 authority. The president wants to fire you, doesn't have to tell you why. I don't have to give a reason. I want her out. So Trump allies have expressed interest in Maxwell as well. They have never ruled out clemency for Maxwell. In 2023, he told The Spectator, I've met her numerous times and I wish her well. What does that mean, wish her well? Okay. The same phrase was used during a trial in 2020. So there's going to be a deal, right? And in fact, there's already been a deal because she's now walking into a great prison. Quite frankly, it's not even it's a prison, but this is it's what they called it Club Fed. Okay, why do they call it? What do they call it Club Fed? Well, what's happening is Joe, for example, the Club Fed is basically is the place where she's staying. Well, it's not called, obviously it's not called Club Fed. It's called, let me give you the name of the place. It's basically a lower security prison facility. She was interviewed last week, and she was basically told, the former associate of convicted sex offender, she's been transferred to a federal prison in Florida from a federal prison in Florida to a lower security facility in Texas. And you know who's there also? Theranos founder, Elizabeth Holmes, who was there for 11 years. Correct. So basically what's happening is all these people are clamoring around that woman to find out exactly what she knows because they want it to be clear. And what's happening is Trump losing his child, MAGA. And that's a big issue. It's a big issue because if you lose MAGA, well, when I say Trump is going to lose MAGA, he doesn't care really because he's president. The thing is, Congress needs MAGA because if you lose the MAGA people, then you're not going to be reelected next year. And if Trump loses Congress, he loses MAGA, he loses his power. Why? Well, look at all the things that he's doing. Look at all the things that he's doing. He is deciding on his own what to do, when to do, and what to do with the tariffs, for example. He's allowed, quote unquote, to do these things unchecked. No one is saying, what are you doing? Maxwell holds all the cards. She is the most powerful person. Doc, hold that word. She is the most powerful person because she could remove, and then do you think, if I know that, you could bet that Trump knows that as well. He knows that she could actually get in there and create trouble for himself, because right now Trump is literally firing people, sending submarines all over the place, telling India, a good friend, right? A good friend of the U.S. technically, because that's what he said. In fact, there was an article recently about Trump's warm embrace of India that's turning cold. So what are you doing with India? Well, you know what? They're basically helping Russia. I don't like it. But it would appear that the Indian president is very, very unhappy. India, viewed by the U.S. as a backward against China, has rankled Washington with its persistent relationship with Russia. New Delhi purchased Russian oil and weapons, propping up Russian economy. I don't care what India does with Russia. They can take their dead, listen to this, they can take their dead economies down together for all I care. And this is how you talk about India? And in fact, he went even further. Okay. He actually literally is making a deal potentially with Pakistan. So Trump is allowed to do whatever he wants. And, you know, because of the MAGA power. But once you lose that, then he won't be able to do all this, because, you know, what do I mean by that? Well, it's very simple. They could do what they did with the Maxwell situation. He said, I don't want to talk about it. And before you know it, you had Congress involved. You had all these people come out. They went to interview her. They gave her a deal. They're going to have her bring it back. And all this after Trump said, I don't want to talk about it. He said, okay, fine, let's talk about it. So obviously, they have certain influence on him. Okay? And that's going to reduce the power that Trump has. And you say, but what's the big deal? So let's wait. No, Trump does not have time. There is no time. And none of it actually is the interest of the American people. This is from DOJ Sam Racing. Trump does not have enough time. What do I mean by that? Time is running out. The physical time is running out. He's running out for many reasons. First of all, he's got lots of balls in the air, and that's the reason why this channel is about, right? This channel is about understanding the risks that we're facing. What are the risks that we're facing? Well, Maxwell is not a risk in itself. I mean, she goes to jail, she's freed. You know, it's the implication of it. The economy, my friends, is slowing down. Well, Stephanie, I agree. Time on his health too. Yeah, I mean, he's 79 years old. Look at, I was reading this thing with The Rock. I mean, not The Rock, the other wrestler. You know, he died 72 years old. He was beating up. He was having a lot of issues, and, you know, and Trump is 79. That's a lot of pressure. I mean, imagine. So the economy is slowing down, okay? And we've seen the numbers, 73,000. The stock market, so what, Biden is older. Well, there's not much left, I hate to tell you. In fact, they brought him, in fact, Congress asked his doctor to come on board and say, okay, what's going on with this guy? Did you know he was sick? And he says, I claim the fifth. I don't want to talk about it. Because he knew that the guy was on his way out, that Biden was on his way out mentally already. And he claimed the fifth. I don't want to talk about it. So that's what's happening. The next thing is obviously, so the economy is slowing down. The stock market, incredibly enough, is doing great. And this, well, hold on. It's back where it was, and it's going up. But it took a big beating in the beginning of the year. So that impacts you, obviously. and the and the stock market is extremely overvalued right now. So it cannot afford any kind of mistake, any kind of problem, any kind of scandal, any kind of situation. Definitely nothing happening to Trump, any of that. The dollar is getting weak. And got weaker because of the announcement. Now, don't forget, the reason why this is important is because the U.S. owes $37 trillion. That's a humongous risk. I mean, not that you have to repay the money tomorrow, and because the U.S. is a reserve currency, certainly can pay up for a while. It can pay, it could issue dollars literally to pay for it. The only thing is, if they realize that there is no money coming in and the economy is weak, who's going to be making those payments? Well, we could refinance. Still, you need to show some sort of tax increase or tax receipts. Otherwise, there's no tax receipts. We're in big trouble. The tariffs, I mean, this one alone, right, is because the biggest question with the tariff is this: who is going to pay for the tariffs? I mean, you're getting this impression that basically these countries are paying for them. 37 trillion in debt. Stephanie is correct. 37 trillion. That amount of money is manageable, but is not sustainable. It is not sustainable. This is something that in 10 years from now we're gonna have a big problem, especially if you're retired right now. There's only enough money for 9 years in the retirement system. So that's a problem. And those tariffs, who is going to pay for the tariffs? Well, Japan and India and all these people. Well, but they're going to pass the tariffs to whomever, because India, the country of India, doesn't pay for the tariffs, right? Let's say Ford, well, I guess we have to talk about the auto companies, but Ford and GM, when they go over and bring the seats and they buy it, they take it from these guys, and as the moment it crosses the border, ka-ching, 25%. Who pays for that? Ford has to pay for it. Trump people don't get it. Maurice says, when Trump came in, unemployment was 4.7, full employment. Then he claimed he lowered unemployment to the lowest level when it only lowered 1%. Well, right now we are at about, around 4%. So, I mean, listen, this is not a big deal. Other countries live with 11% all year long. So 4%, this is full employment. You have full employment. I mean, some people are always going to have no job, and you move back and forth. So the thing with the tariffs is who is going to pay the tariffs. And this is important for you. Why? Because the money is coming in. Ford is going to say, well, I need steel. In fact, there was a huge article on Ford on that they are the largest importer of aluminum. So you're going to have to pay that. As you're paying for it, what do you do with the 15 or 25% cost wherever you're getting? And this is where Ford is complaining. You say, you're taxing Mexico, you're taxing all this, you're taxing me. So who's going to pay for that? The people who are going to pay for it is basically right now, if GM took $1 billion hit because they're taking it in the chin. Why? Well, because they can't raise car prices by 15%. The other guys are not doing it. Toyota is not doing it, so they're holding and holding and holding. What you're not seeing is right now the small items are being increased. Like I think Target is increasing its prices, and you might want to comment on that. And I definitely know, because I saw the research, that Amazon has increased its prices on 23 items. The only thing is, they're only increasing on the small items, not the big items. So you don't really pay attention. So who's going to pay for this? Who is going to pay for this? Well, ultimately, and that's what everybody's saying. When I say everybody, the economists say, well, people have to pay for it. No? It's not actually happening right now. And in fact, $5 store. In fact, what's happening is the people that are the Fed, two of the Fed chair. Well, I got to tell you about this as well. There's also going on. Two of the Fed chairs are descending. They dissented. They said, no, we should lower the rates now because the economy is weakening and really there's not such a big impact on inflation and prices are just a one-time bump and that's it. And don't forget one thing, which nobody talks about, is the fact that, yeah, I know we're paying 15%, but frankly, these companies are making plenty of money. For years they made money because they weren't paying anything. So they could afford maybe 10%, right? 15%. And they don't have to pass it to you. But of course, and this is the other themes of this channel, right? Depending what you're thinking in terms of information, which is very biased, the people that don't like what Trump is doing are going to tell you, no. If you look at the research, historical research, it shows that ultimately the consumer pay for it, and the consumer is going to pay for it. And this is exactly what the Fed chair is going to say. You wait long enough, and that's why I'm not raising the rates. But this is very dangerous because if you're not lowering the rates while the economy is slowing down, you're going to put us in a bigger hole. Oh, sorry. Why you mean sorry? Well, that's what the Fed said a long time ago. They were supposed to lower the rates raise the rates in 2021 under Biden, and he didn't, and it was a mistake, and he said sorry. So you have to be very careful what you do in those circumstances. So what's going to happen is they're basically, because the information is biased, they're basically telling you what you want to hear. If you don't like Trump and somebody tells you, well, you're right not liking Trump, because he's charging all these things, but ultimately you're going to pay for it. Why? Well, because we've done research and historically that's what has happened. Well, it hasn't happened yet. And these two guys, and this guy at the Fed and this woman, they both said that is not necessarily true. I run a warehouse and we already are being hit. Here's some good information. Maurice says that I run a warehouse and we already are being hit by the raise costs. So on many ingredients we use to make our product, the cost will go up. Right? I mean, that's one guy, but let's see. Watching from the Philippines. Hopefully, Fala's vlog. Hopefully, you got. Well, I think you're also getting hit as well because you're gonna have to pay something. I forgot what the number is, but it's pretty high in the Philippines as well. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen is ultimately whether or not it gets paid. But what's confusing is those two Fed governors are saying, no, we don't agree. And even if there is an increase, it's a one-time increase. It's not so big deal that you're making it out to be. You're pushing the issue. And this is where you need a channel like the Black Swan to say, okay, well, what's going on? I mean, what's the situation? Give us a feel, at least in the middle, right? Not this way or not that way, kind of in the middle so we understand what is happening. Otherwise, it gets very confusing. And yet it will impact you. Now, it would appear that, now, of course, with the two Fed people that I'm talking about, what's happening recently, yesterday, you can't squeeze blood from a rock. What happened yesterday, and this is very interesting, is another Fed governor is quitting. Yesterday, this was announced. She's quitting ahead of her appointment. What do you think is going to happen on Monday morning? Trump is going to get in there. He's going to get another Fed governor that's going to vote his way. So now, out of the 7 governors, 6 or 7, 7 and 5 is 12 and 13. Yeah, 7. 2 already said we should lower rates. Now you're going to have another one that's going to want to lower rates. So now, in August, when the Fed comes around, and I know we want to get detail on the Fed and these things, but you need to know these things because they do impact you. In August, when the Fed comes back, then he's going to have himself 5 Biden people and 3 Trump people. That's going to be a lot of dissent here in that room. And I will have to tell you that it would have appeared, and we'll see soon, that there may have been another dissent at that time. This is extremely important because now, before she quit, there were 2 people definitely say, we don't agree what's going on at the Fed. There may have been a 3rd person, which we don't know yet, and it will come out when when they make it public, maybe in 1 or 2 weeks. But then she's quitting, so that's 4 people now for Trump, quote unquote. And 4 people 7, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, 4 against 3. Right? We have 7 people. 2 said, I'm for Trump. 1 also might have, maybe he's not for Trump, but he wanted to lower the rates. That's 3. And then she's quitting because that's not the same person. So now this is going to be very interesting in August because out of the 7 governors, 4 are going to be quote unquote for Trump. And they're going to outrule the Fed chair. And we know now he fires at BLS because she did not like the numbers. Correct. She fired her. And I'll talk about this right after. So what's going to happen is she's basically, to the Fed chair, is basically saying that, you know what? I'm quitting. But because, frankly, now all the Trump people are going to overrule me, and there's investigation and this, and there's probably going to be another fair. So he's going to be a lame duck Fed chair. And don't forget, his statute ends in May of next year. There's no way he's going to hold that long. He's going to have to leave because he's going to come in, and obviously you have to think that, well, hold on, yeah, but it's not 4 against Trump. We're here for the economy. Do you believe that the rates are going to? Do you believe that we should lower rates even though we have inflation? Because remember one thing, my friends. If you anything that you need to understand from this program is that thing that's very important is the fact that if you have inflation, you cannot lower rates. Okay, let's lower rates. You guys know what's going on. You're PhDs, right? But don't make a mistake. Don't lower because Trump wants you to lower and you want the job and you want to be in his good graces and you lower rates. Hopefully you're not. You have a fiduciary duty not to do it, right? This is what you're doing, right? You're not lowering the rates just for the sake of lowering the rates, because then, my friends, then you're going to make things a lot worse, because now you're going to have inflation driven by low rates. That will be a catastrophe. So this is important, right? This is very important. You need to understand these things, and I want you to make sure you understand these things, right? I mean, you may not care about that woman and the market and all that, but keep in mind that this could have a huge impact in the U.S. if these people decide. Now, we're going to assume, let's assume that this is okay, right? Let's assume that they're not doing it for that reason. Let's assume, well, in that case, if that's the case, then what's going to happen is very simple. They're not going to do it. They're going to lower the rates. And the Fed is going to be a useless Fed chair, because he's going to say, but the tariffs and this and that, nobody's listening to me anymore. No, and frankly, the building and this, and you're being investigated, and you made mistakes in the past, and maybe you don't like Trump at all, and that's why you're doing all this. What's going to happen is they're going to lower the rates. And frankly, that's a problem, right? Because Maurice just told us, right, from the Philippines. No, not Maurice, from the Philippines. He's not from the Philippines. He's from, the guy from the Philippines, I forget his name. Maurice will talk about BLS, but basically, the guy from the Philippines said that the prices are going, no. Maurice actually said that the rates are going up. He's seeing it. No, the products are going up. Now, if that's the case, and if Maurice is right, and it keeps going and going and going and going, they should lower the rates. Well, is the economy slowing down? The number seems to indicate it. The employment number, 73,000, is very low. Maybe it gets revised upward. We'll see. And Trump is pissed enough that he fired her, and we'll talk about that. But the point is, if the employment is, so if the economy is slowing down, then we have to lower rates then. But if the inflation numbers are coming in and you're lowering the rates, you're going to create more inflation. And I'm sure some of you, because I look at the demographics of this channel, and you guys probably remember 1970, and more important, 1980, what Paul Volcker had to do to break the back of inflation. He had to raise the rate from 4 to 12%. 12%. That's what you're going to need to do. So, right? And of course, the Democrats are watching this and saying, great, let's hope that all this happens. Let's hope that the inflation comes in. Um, let's hope that he comes in, and let's hope that you lower the rates, and then we have a huge amount of disaster, and then we come back into power. I've invested since I was in high school in the 70s and was in business, economic, I have my own business. This is not intelligence policy. It's a strong. You mean the lower rates, right? You want them to they should be lowering the rates, yeah. But we'll see. Now, what happened with the BLS thing is actually very interesting because unfortunately, this woman Erica McIntyre, she's been a labor economist for 20 years. She's a labor economist for 20 years, and so she worked for the Census Bureau, the Treasury Department, the White House Council of Economic Advisors. I mean, she's a BA, she has a PhD. She was a commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics in July 2023, confirmed by the Senate in January 2024 with bipartisan support, 86-8. So she seems to know what she's doing, and she took office in January 2024. And for 4 years, she has a 4-year term that can extend across administration. And yet yesterday she was fired. He directed a dismissal after the July. I know she's actually, I think she's because he directed a dismissal because she only showed 73,000 jobs added in previous month, May and June, revised downward by 250,000. Right? So basically, the job report was 73,000 added. That's not a lot. You need, I think, 220 really to make it good. And the previous month was revised downward by 258,000. Now, of course, you have to understand that. How do I know jobs were created? Ridiculous. Do you know that stocks fall every time? Laurie said every single time a new random ridiculous tariffs. Well, the stock fall because of the uncertainty, because they're like surprised. And the stocks are falling because the people are pretty smart and they're thinking, okay, for tariffs mean inflation, and you're in the process of reducing the rates, so that's going to make things a lot worse. And and the market doesn't know. The market hates uncertainty. You know, if you leave the market alone and you don't say anything, you don't do anything, like last year, nothing was going on, right? The market just kept going up and up and up and up and up. And because Biden wasn't doing much of anything, he was doing things, but not like Trump is doing. The market was just doing. There was not that much uncertainty. Now there was something else going on in the background, which is not good, but meaning that the U.S. is losing its power. But the market was just going up just fine. And the reason this is happening is they need to realize that you have two choices. Because they're all blaming Trump and saying, look what you're doing, look what you're saying, look all the horrible things that you're doing to the economy, and you shouldn't be doing these things. And you shouldn't be doing these things because you're basically making things worse. Well, you have to understand one thing, is that you have to do something. You can't just sit on your hands. It's not business as usual. It is not business as usual. You need to understand that the U.S. Is in trouble because it is losing slowly but surely its ability to produce. The U.S. is losing its ability to produce. The U.S. is not making as many things that it used to do. The U.S. Has, for example, the U.S. in terms of the drugs, for example, 90% of all prescription dispensers in the U.S. are not produced domestically. So you have to do something. You have to do something. And instead, they rely heavily on overseas manufacturing, especially what is called the API, the active pharmaceutical ingredients, and finished generics. And as of 2019, only about 28% of facilities manufacturing API were located in the US. It's mostly India and China. They are the one making medicine for the US. So, so you may agree or may disagree with Trump, but you have to understand his position. His position is, I got to do something. I got to do something. And these are the risks that we're following for you. I got to do something about the debt. I got to do, which hasn't done much, quite frankly. I got to do something about China. I got to do something about um, the dollar, right? Because we are slowly becoming irrelevant. And I will do a video on that, having to do with China and the decoupling. What's happening, my friends? And this is the thing that you need to worry about, is that very slowly the U.S. is being decoupled from the world. What do I mean by decoupled? But basically, you're not making anything. Okay. When it comes down to industrial production, I think we have a 5 to 10 year. In 5 to 10 years, semiconductors, you won't be able to make semiconductors if you don't do anything. As of 2020, and semiconductors are extremely important. The chips, as of 2025, the U.S. holds just 12% of global semiconductor fabrication capacity, a drop from 37% in 1990. That's what Trump is doing in his own, kind of way that you may or may not like, okay? But you are losing the U.S., okay? And what I mean losing is you're not making anything. Now, of course, you're going to say, well, you have to understand also, when we say we're not making anything, 20% of the industrial production is basically the GDP, but 80% is services. So the U.S. is very strong in service. Very strong in service. Banking and finance and these type of things. So the U.S. is making a lot of money with that. But it's not making a lot of money, but it's getting the shrink of the industrial production is shrinking, and this is why Trump got elected, because when we say it's shrinking and it's being made overseas, then you're losing your job. If you work in Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh or whatever, you lost your job because they moved the jobs overseas. But it was a good idea. Why? It was a good idea because the companies made more money, because after all, the pharmaceutical products are cheaper overseas, which, by the way, Trump is going after that as well. And he's going to the pharmaceutical company today and basically telling them, listen, your prices are too high. You got to lower the prices. We are paying too much. What's going on with that? And that's what's happening in the U.S. right now. And that's what the Trump is losing. The U.S. is slowly but surely sinking because it's not able to produce the thing. Semiconductors. Now, Biden trying to do something, that's what they call the Chip and Science Act, where they would basically give $39 billion of subsidies and investment credit, aims to raise the U.S., but that's what happened. And all this, believe it or not, all this around one thing, one woman, Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell right now, it's a very important thing for the MAGA people. Why? Because accountability is a core MAGA value. Okay? And MAGA's rallying cry is against the elite abuse of power. That's why they want to know what's going on. If they don't know what's going on, they're going to say there is a cover-up. If there is a cover-up, they're not going to support the president. They're not going to support the Republicans. I mean, they're not going to support the president, and they're definitely not going to support the Republican candidates. That's part of the thing. So it's a big mess right now. It's a humongous amount of mess. Linda says Trump is not doing anything about the semiconductor business. President Biden did all that. Trump always takes credit for all the things, not the person in office, unfortunately. Well, Linda, what has happened is, as far as the semiconductors, let me tell you what Trump is doing, and that's also that's a lot of damage. So what Linda is referring to is the fact that Biden put the Chips and Science Act, which is basically $39 billion in subsidies subsidies and investment credit aims to raise U.S. fabrication, to 14% by 2032 and 28%, right, by 2032 for the advanced logic. There was a new Ohio fabrication, and that's what Biden won't put together. What Trump is doing, and this is it exemplifies what he's doing. But basically, Taiwan makes about 60%, is the largest producer. So what Trump did, he he basically said to Taiwan, you got to do more. You have to help us build it here. You've got to give more money. In the past, Taiwan was giving like $2 to $4 billion a year. Now I want 100. I want more. And you know what? If I don't get more, you're on your own. And Taiwan knows what it means, because China, by the way, has been trying to get in there in the longest time. So Linda, so this is the way Trump does it. He says, I'm not going to give you. I want you to invest in the U.S. I'm in the call. Just repeat whatever. No, that's a fact. Taiwan has failed to secure a trade deal with Donald Trump before his August 1st deadline, has deepened fears that Washington could water down security support, where Biden was basically giving incentivized with $39 billion. And by the way, the $39 billion, where do you get that money from? You borrow more money, because the government is technically in default. Meaning that it takes less money than it gives out, and you could not afford to give another $39 billion. So, yeah, it's a great idea. You have to do something. At least you recognize something needs to get done. But what's happening is the way Trump does it is very different. Trump coerces, and maybe this is why people don't like him. Trump coerces, and we'll see if it works. But basically, he went to Taiwan and says, you know what? Because don't forget, Taiwan is the world's most important ship manufacturer in the 7th largest UN trading partner. And Trump went over there, and we didn't go over there, actually. In fact, he didn't want to see the guy. The president wanted to come to the U.S., says, don't come. I'm talking to China right now. You're small fry. At some point, who knows, you're going to be, the same way he talked to China, he's talking to Taiwan. And the Trump administration, Washington blocked the president of Taiwan's request to visit New York next week. I would like to come and visit you. Don't come in. I don't want to see you. The Trump administration is also considering a downgrade to bilateral defense talks. That's cruel, right? Because Taiwan has no chance against China. There are several possibilities for why Trump sat on the deal, but I'm going with the China trade negotiations, said one person. Some person said basically it's because Trump is negotiating with China. So the bigger picture is this. The decoupling I'm telling you about is happening. So the U.S. is losing slowly but surely, over the next 5 to 10 years. If you don't do anything, you won't know how to do semiconductors. You will not know anything to do with basic industrial things such as rare minerals, okay, and a lot of other things that you're losing. In the meantime, what China is doing, and this is kind of the biggest black swan, is the fact that China is decoupling. China wants to be on its own. China really doesn't need the U.S., right, for anything. It needs the U.S. to make money and to collect it, but it has to learn everything there was to be learned from the U.S. And that, my friend, is a problem, because right now there are huge discussion between China and the U.S. I don't want to get too much into this topic because I'm going to do it, but basically my point is going to be that China says, you know what, I don't need you anymore. You don't know how to make things. So U.S. ends up not knowing anything, not being anything, and end up very, very weak. And that's going to be a problem. So essentially, back to the case of Maxwell, and we'll do a video on China, because that's a big topic, and right now they're trying to discuss with China, and I don't think it's going well, because China is not going to. It's not India or Taiwan. They're not going to take it. But with Maxwell, unfortunately, what's going to happen is the question is what does she know then? What is the big deal? What is it that she knows? Well, from what I understand, is she would definitely know high-profile associates or clients, right? Because she participated in and benefited from Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking network. She was present at Epstein properties. Remember the Palm Beach, Manhattan, when what's his name, that guy from Prince Andrew, he took that picture. She was there. It was a little St. James in the island. There was a flight log, the photos, a guest list. Now, the reason this was withheld during the trial is because prosecutors limited the scope of Maxwell's conduct to a full conspiracy trial. Naming indicted people can trigger defamation suit or mistrial. So by definition, she didn't have to say anything. There was a long-standing speculation of Epstein and Maxwell, secretly recorded guests for blackmail or leverage. Although, if we have, where the heck is this? We haven't seen it for a while. So, where's that list? If there is a list, we haven't seen it. Supposedly, there were tapes, there were CDs, there were photos, logs of sexual activity, materials where maybe it's stored somewhere. Because you have to understand that Epstein, right? Epstein was worth $600 million, right? Epstein was worth $600 million. You don't make that kind of money by doing all the and the thing with his money is that he had about $195 million in investments. Okay, I can understand. $56 million in cash. Who keeps that kind of money in cash? 113 million real estate. Okay, fine. You need places. 18 million in planes. $200 million in financial assets. And yet, is there like an Epstein fund? No, right? So the question is, what happened? What happened to the money? Well, I mean, how did he make that much money? I mean, we know the money is slowly being depleted because of all the lawsuits, but nobody make that kind of money. Okay, nobody makes that kind of money doing the things that he did in a very not legalistic way, but in a very weird kind of way. So let's be careful, right? So if he's got that much, and you're telling me that none of these basically these people are just disappeared, nothing? I don't think so. MAGA is back in business. Yes, MAGA is back in business. MAGA is very strong. Remember that a couple of early in June or July, and this is the thing with Palm Bondi, which is a problem, right? Because in February, Bondi basically told Fox News that she had the Epstein client list. They were sitting on my desk. But by July, she denied such a list existed and confirmed Epstein died by suicide, creating confusion, skepticism of her credibility. Now, she is a lawyer, right? So when she says, I have a client list or list of clients, no, you misunderstood. I meant general case files, not the actual client list. And you're a lawyer, and you know the MAGA people wanted to know what was going on, and you're telling me that you made a mistake, that you didn't realize what you meant by the client list. And that's why everything went sideways after that. Why? But because the reports in July indicate in July 9th meeting where Bondi, Todd Blanche, by the way, the deputy Todd Blanche, he's the one that went to talk to Maxwell last week, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino were internal indecision in withholding files, spark resignation threat, and internal GOP outrage. So the MAGA people are very important. These people know who's bartering their butter, who's bartering their bread. They say, what are you doing? You said there was a list. Now, the question is, why didn't she continue? Why didn't she say, why didn't she come up with a list? Was it a mistake? Is it the same mistake that Powell did in 2021 when inflation was going up and Biden was the president, and Powell basically said that I made a mistake. I should have raised interest rates, and I didn't. Right? So I make mistakes. Sorry. I guess she made a mistake. The only thing is when these people making too much money are too important to make that kind of mistakes, quite frankly. You can't afford that mistake. So then I guess you're in the camp that Bondi basically, because she saw the list and supposedly Trump was on that list, and I guess she knew what was going on, and she didn't want to talk about it, or she trying to avoid it or whatever. Is that what happened? It's hard to believe that she make a mistake like that. Plus, what's also very interesting right now is, have you seen her? She hasn't testified or spoken publicly, has not held a press conference or appeared before Congress. This is not coincidental. No way. Okay? Why she remains silent? Well, maybe legal constraint. The Department of Justice guidelines restrict disclosure of grand jury and sensitive material. Bond is citing victim confidentiality of the victim as a barrier to broad release. Political pressure. Maybe the MAGA influencers and the House Republicans have denounced her, demanding more disclosure. But she has yet to schedule testimony, and the reason she hasn't done it is because probably Trump told her, don't do it. When your boss told you don't do it, and the rest of the world says do it, what do? Well, you just don't say anything, you go and hide. So I think that at the end of the day, they're going to have to give this woman clemency. They have to. She knows too much, and she's not going to talk. And obviously, she's getting what she wants. Remember, they spoke to her last week, right? They spoke to Ghislaine Maxwell last week, and guess what's happening today? She's being transferred. There's widespread speculation that Maxwell relocation may have been linked to ongoing DOJ efforts to secure a corporation. So she's getting what she wants. You see, I'm not saying that for nothing. Well, and don't forget, Blanche was there for like 2 days, and he recorded 9 hours, and 100 names were mentioned. There was 100 names mentioned. So she reportedly answered detailed questions. Why isn't the department interviewing the victims? What they did? He's trying to hide, but he can't, says Alexander. Trump is going down fast. We shall see. But obviously, Trump is very perturbed by this thing. And obviously, she has been offered a deal, so she's not talking. Now, remember, that woman is facing 20 years in jail. This is over. She's, 60 years old. By the time she comes out, it's over. Although she comes out as a time where 79, or maybe 79 is not so old, depending, how healthy you are. Could last 100 years, technically. I mean, the head of the casino over at in Vegas, the Bellagio, Kirk Kirkland, was 80, 90-something years old. He had a 40-year-old wife. Who knows? I digress. The point is that there's unusual logistics. Why? The transfer was considered unusual because it was executed directly by prison bureau staff. Let's say, release her, let's move her somewhere else. Not by the U.S. Marshal Service, which may have required a little more information, like under what, why is she being released, why she's being transferred. That's a problem. So that's favoritism, and unfortunately, the victims and legal advocacy group, and in this case, they're not going to pay attention to these people. It's so important. Labeling it a betrayal and a hint of a cover-up. Well, obviously, this cover-up. Bondi has disappeared. Bondi was supposed to be in charge. Bundy is she did have a problem with her eye, for real. I mean, she went to the hospital just at the time where literally 90 minutes before the release of the Wall Street Journal that she was based that basically said that she knew that Trump was on that list. She had a problem with her eyes and she went to the hospital, and we haven't heard from her. Something is going to happen to that woman, to Bondi. Either she's going to leave, quit, and obviously the problem is now you got this on your shoulders, and you still have to do your daily work where you're not just there to take care of the Maxwell file, right? You gotta deal with terrorism and all these other things. Can you do all this effectively? And that's a problem. Whenever you're close to Trump, it's going to be very difficult to do your job. Another one that's going to have a difficulty do jobs around Trump is the Fed chair, which is amazing. We're even talking about it. The Fed chairman, that was never happened before, where a president is actually that kind of power or influence and pushing and tugging until the guy disappears. And now the guy is going to go. Don't forget, there's 7 governors at the Fed. 2 of them already said we should have lowered the rates, which impacts you and your mortgage and your houses and your cars and all that. There was another, and you'll see, mark my word, there was another one that said no. Okay. Another, and then yesterday, one of the other governors decided to leave. She's leaving. She's quitting. And so now you're going to have 3 Biden people that basically want to keep rates the way they are because they don't know what's happening with the tariffs. And you got 4 Trump people, although we shouldn't think those way because these people are not supposed to be party affiliated. But we know very well what's happening, and therefore laws are going to rates are going to be lowered. So the Fed chair is basically a mute point. He's a puppet. Nobody's going to pay attention to him anymore, and that's a problem when you're close to Trump. So you have to manage that relationship very, very, very carefully. Maybe the way Marco Rubio does it, right? You have to politically. You need to be with the guy, but you have to survive being with the guy. What is Kadara saying? Once you see how many are on both sides, you realize there is never Gomara, and the other black book that was found has been verified and named from both sides. Internet will be the next control method that block access and control. What's just a rewriting of it. Nobody will stop this madness. They're all in on it. Well, you have to understand that these people have a day job. They don't need these jobs. They're doing. Why do you go in government? You go government for power. You want the power. That's what, and they have the power, and that's what they want, right? So if you're a guy like Marco Rubio, like I was saying, you're trying to survive the environment, and you have to manage it very, very, very carefully because it is a very dangerous thing to do. It's very dangerous to be near Trump. I mean, the guys has a job to do, and it's a big job, like I told you, right? Don't forget the big overall, and this is the idea. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We talk about the Ghislaine Maxwell, but this is not that kind of show technically, right? This is intelligent people talking about intelligent subject, and why this matters a lot. This matters a lot because of the way she is. She's got the MAGA. She's stuck to MAGA, right? And at the same time, Trump needs the MAGA and the power and the support because they could go after Trump for everything that he does because technically right now Trump is doing whatever he wants. Literally, he's firing this one, sending missiles over there. And of course, Trump is not a crazy person either. He's doing it for a reason. And there's a reason why a bunch of people voted for him as well. Not taking side really, but the U.S. is technically losing ground. The U.S. is losing ground and something needs to happen. Not 100 years from now, not 100 years from now, right now, in the next 5 years, in 5 to 10 years, there's not going to be the ability to produce chips in this country. We're losing ground. Pharmaceutical products. What do you think? Trump is basically asking all of these pharmaceutical firms, you've got to start producing more. You've got to start producing more, and you got to stop charging such high prices because overseas they don't pay that much for Ozempic, quite frankly. They pay very little. So I don't see why do I have to pay so much money for it. Okay. So be very wary of this situation. This is a very complex situation that is cannot make it. But that's not going to happen the way you think it's going to happen. This thing could go south very quickly, and that's the concern. How can this go south very quickly? The economy. Okay, if Trump is correct and inflation doesn't do anything, doesn't go anywhere, and he gets to lower the rates, the market is going to go even higher, the stock market. And the market is already overvalued, extremely overvalued. So it's going to be a problem because if on top of that you've got inflation tied to lower rates, it's a disaster. Okay. Two, all these countries that you're going after with the tariffs, right? What choice do they have? If you're Taiwan, you have a hunger on your back. If you're Canada, you have no choice because, frankly, 70% of your exports are going to the U.S. You're going to have to deal with the U.S. The only reason why Canada is not doing with the U.S. right now is, frankly, because they don't have to, because all of the 80% of the products are protected under NAFTA, under the North American Trade Agreement between Mexico, Canada, and the U.S., which took, by the way, 3 years to negotiate, and he's doing all these deals in 2 months. That's amazing. I mean, the point is it's happening. So get a look. Carrera says, go look at the videos of the Canadian stores showing how they don't carry any products anymore and they aren't planning to take. Yes. And that's the second point I think is a very good point I want to make. So the U.S. is losing ground, which is one thing, but then it's being decoupling, meaning nobody wants to do business with the U.S. Why? Well, because you're mean and nasty, and you're charging us all these prices. You don't recognize I was your friend. But the thing is, I had no choice, because if I don't do anything, I am losing power anyway. Okay, and unfortunately, the way these countries are reacting, like Canada, I mean, I think the amount of people coming to the U.S. has dropped tremendously. Canadian people are not coming to the U.S. visiting, but that's what Trump is doing, right? Because he wants to make sure that we need to remain relevant, and I guess everybody, quote unquote, has taken advantage of the U.S. But that's another word for saying we are losing control. Nobody pays attention to us anymore, and we're making less. But that's a fact, right? I mean, that's not Trump propaganda. We've seen it in 2020 during COVID time. There was nobody there. You couldn't get this thing done, so you have no choice but to do it. The Republican Party is a representative. Which one is a prime? The voter or corrupt politician? Yeah. You have to be careful. So at the end of the day, what's happening with the U.S. administration is it could go south very much. And the way it goes south, like I was saying, I want to finish my thought, is that then we are not going to do business with you anymore. Meaning Canada, instead of selling its steel, and they were saying that at one point, they said, well, we'll look some other ways. It's like right now in Europe, the winemakers are saying, well, what do you mean 15%? Are you kidding me? Well, who are you going to sell your wine to? The U.S. The U.S. is a country that pays the most for wine. So, yeah, you could sell your wine to something else. You could go to Spain and sell your wine. You could go to Mexico and sell your wine, but you're not going to sell it that wine. They may not like it because they make their own wine, blah, 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 right? But that's the risk the U.S. is taking, and this is why you need a channel like this to explain to you the risks that are involved. And the risks that are involved is that you are going to lose control of the country, and more importantly, everyone is going to go away and stay away from you, which is a brilliant strategy from China, and I will do a thing on China separate. But the idea of what they did is basically they say, you know what, let me learn how to make these things since 2000s when I joined the organization. So I've been doing it for 20 years. And I've been doing it for 20 years. Now I know how to make everything. And now that I know how to make everything, I really don't need you. I mean, I need a little more time. Like, for example, I will talk about this later on. But basically, they're on their own, right? So back to Ghislaine Maxwell is she is key to everything because that's one thing about Trump is that he's not able to control her. He could control Pam Bondi. He could fire that woman from BLS. He could send He could send the submarines over there, but he cannot control them. And he cannot control the MAGA people, his own creation. And in a way, Maxwell is an extension of the MAGA situation. And that's a problem because I think that at some point that's where it's going to unravel. And I mean, and don't forget, this is a lot of stress on Donald Trump. Okay, to tell you. And it's very dangerous because if anything happens to him, he's holding all these events. And this channel basically follows, 10 risks, follows the economy, follows the stock market, follows the dollar. The dollar is becoming very weak. Follows the tariffs, obviously, and that in itself is forget it, we're going all day on this. Follows what's happening at the Fed. And remember, what's happening also is basically Trump is going after all the fundamental bastion of a society, right? What is he going? He's going after the Federal Reserve. He's going after the tariff. He's going after education. He's going after our allies. He's going after everyone. He's shaking, right, the foundation, which is something that he didn't do before. Like they ask you to be he says a weak dollar is good. Yes, he's going after the dollar. He purposely wants the dollar to be weak. And of course, if you're for Trump, you're going to say, well, yeah, of course it's good because now if you're overseas and you're buying stuff in the US, it's cheaper. So I want to buy or I want to visit, which I don't understand why Canadians don't come here because frankly, it's cheaper now, European, right? So it is cheaper to come to this country because the dollar is weak. But Trump is going after all the foundations of the society. So but he's shaking all these things. Why is he shaking it? What do you think he's doing it? Because he's crazy? No, he's not crazy. He realized somebody, he's not walking around by himself. He's got a bunch of smart people walking around him. I mean, he had Elon Musk, by the way. He's got J.D. Vance, which I haven't seen too much. Only problem is, the concern that I have is when you have people like J.D. Vance, people like Elon Musk, not being around him, and these are smart people, that's a problem because that means that he's being more isolated. They realize, listen, I don't know what is going on. I don't want to be near this thing, right? So he's shaking all the foundations of what happened. And what's going to mean for the long term? He's crazy. Exactly. Okay, Lori. Well, he certainly has his mind made up about a lot of things. Let's put it this way. But when you're going after a foundational aspect of life the way you are, can you just put it back the way it was? Let's say, he leaves 3 years from now and Taiwan has to, I mean, what he did with Taiwan was a little rough. He's basically saying, I need more money from you, otherwise I'm giving you to the wolves. Okay? Now, of course, Taiwan got away from years just giving the U.S. $4 billion while being protected completely. You see, that's enough. I'm not going to do that anymore. I want 100 to 200 billion, and I want you to come over here and explain to Intel how to make chips. Your competition, literally. Otherwise, I'm not protecting you. Oh, come on, that's not fair. I know, life is not fair anyway. So that's what he's doing, and once he's gone, do you think that India is going to look at the U.S. the way it used to look? Do you think that Europe is going to look at the U.S.? Do you think that Canada is going to look at the U.S.? That's a concern that everyone has. Can you put it back where it was? No, of course, if the U.S. makes up and it becomes the greatest house on the hill and there's no inflation and the stock market is up and the dollar remains strong, it's great. But if that's not the case, then you lose everything, right? You lose your standing, you lose your money, you lose. So there's a lot to be lost here. And this is why I want you to understand what's happening, because you need to prepare yourself. I don't know, maybe you need to leave, or maybe you need to invest more, you need to stay. but it will be something. Something is going to happen. The same way Ghislaine Maxwell will probably get clemency. Something is going to happen that is highly unusual, extremely unusual. Now, I was talking about Musk before, and this is a topic with Trump. Is he got see what happened at Pam Bondi, for example, is close to him in trouble. But that happened to Elon Musk. Remember Elon Musk? How great he was with Donald Trump? And what happened to him? Right? He kind of disappeared. How did that happen? You need to understand these interactions so you could see the black swan coming, the risk coming. In June 2025, Musk publicly criticized Trump flagship One Beautiful Bill, right? And you remember what he said, right? He also did mention that he's on the list. And that's the first time I remember when I heard him say, what is he saying? He's crazy, right? He basically, in early July, Trump said he would have done it differently regarding DOJ, project cuts, and structural changes, signaling dissatisfaction and Musk's execution and approach. Basically, there was a deliberate demystification of the DOJ. And of course, DOJ experienced some setback, and performance became controversial, and Trump administration evidently saw Musk association as a liability. I don't want to fix the problem now. I mean, the thing is, when a guy like Elon Musk is being told to, get away, I don't want to talk to you, that's a problem. Not so much because, I like Elon Musk and none of that. A little concern because the guy is smart. And if he's smart, don't forget the way he put Tesla together, it was a big thing, right? He literally, and it's actually the Tesla is mostly made in the U.S. Interesting enough, so he was able to do that for quite some times, and he's very efficient, very smart. So when people like that say things like Trump was on that list, if a guy he's upset, you're pretty sure that he was on that list. I mean, he was. He was close to Epstein. I mean, Musk must have seen something. Elon Musk must have seen something, okay? And the fact that Pam Bondi is out there. Elon, what is South saying? Elon was smart with things that benefited him. He was the smartest guy in the room until they decided he wasn't. And Beijing is saying, Germany, the third largest economy in the world, pays less into NATO on a percentage than Albania, the worst economy in Europe. Thank you for catching yourself. You almost said it, LOL. Yeah, I mean, Elon was smart on with things that, well, obviously it's benefiting him, right? Because that's what they do. I mean, the car, I mean, works, and he put the thing together very well, and he works very well, and he's smart. And when the guy tells you this is not working, this is not working. But my point for bringing up Musk is anyone close to Trump, unless you're smart, really smart, and I'm talking JD smart, kind of smart, and general security prison generally restrict minimum security placement to inmates with fewer than 10 years. Maxwell still has a decade. Do you believe? Really? Federal prison generally restrict minimum security prison to inmates with fewer than 10 years remaining. Interesting. Wow, this is interesting. And that's the reason why, she was basically she was allowed, right? The transfer was considered unusual because it was executed directly by prison bureau staff, not by U.S. Marshal. Maybe the U.S. Marshal would have said what Skip said, which is basically it's less than 20 years. You have to be less than 10 years to move in. You're a 20-year felon. That's now the Epstein list. The question is, when we say the list, I will tell you that, and I need to double check because I don't want to give you the wrong information. But I think that what's his name, Merkowitz. What is his name? Merkowitz. Yes, he was a lawyer from Maxwell. No, he wasn't Maxwell's lawyer. He was Epstein's lawyer. Let me double check that for you. What did Epstein lawyer said about the list? I think he said, well, there was no list, technically. Okay, Alan Dershowitz, sorry. He's saying that no such list existed. Dershowitz, who represented Epstein during the 2006 Florida plea deal, stated there was never a formal client list. Despite public speculation, he said none was ever created. He acknowledged knowing the identities of people linked to Epstein, and this is privilege-bound information, but insists those names are sealed and that many public rumors are unfounded. So the thing is, do you believe that a guy, and this is important because if there is a list and you know who is on that list, we're in big trouble. But do you believe like Epstein had a list of the people that were basically doing these things and he kept in a book? He would be that stupid? I don't know. I think that now if you look at his background, right? If you look at the money, for example, that he had, he was worth $600 million. Anyone that's worth $600 million that's carrying $56 million in cash, that's something is kind of weird, right? And now, why would he carry around a list? But then, okay, then why is Pam Bondi that there was a list? And these are smart people. I mean, she is. And she said, no, I never meant there was it's not that kind of list, a different kind of list. Well, then say it. But then they had a fight with each other, with the Fed, with the FBI chair. It became very incestuous, and it becomes very strange that these people saying that there is nothing, and yet they're all fighting over and over and over and over. And that's problematic, I think. I think that what you have is these people really, and there's something going on, and it's important to realize that. And the reason it's important to realize that is that everything hinges around Trump and his influence on the people around him. And unfortunately, I don't think that Trump is able to manage that process. He was able to manage the process before, but I don't think he knows. That's why neither side will release it. Well, that's why he has, Calera says, that's why he has to have certain people, his so-called trust, they have to have been, well, yes, obviously. Right? I mean, but I will tell you, if I'm, just like he's going to move Pete to be Senator of Tennessee, because he needs to place them there. And Matthew says, well, he has to have name and phone number in order to call them for the parties. So you believe it's just a narrative? Yeah, I mean, it's, I mean, the list itself, you don't need a list. What you need is, you need this. You need the, what does she know? That's it. She knew names, right? She doesn't, you don't have to have a list. She has the list. And the thing with her, you have to understand, is that when she went to court and they were going after her, everybody thought, oh, we're going to know about everything. No, you're not going to know about everything. If you run somebody over, they're not going to check to see if you're cheating on your taxes. They're going to say, well, you run over this person, I'm going to try you for that. And that's what happened with her. And she had all of the reason not to talk about anything else. Like, I don't understand and I don't know anything. Right? I don't want to know anything. The problem with the victims is you can't really talk to them because these people are being paid off. And they have been paid off to the tune of lawsuits and creditor. Dozens of lawsuits were filed against the estate. And basically, they paid over 150 victims of $121 million. There were thousands. That's not all paid. Oh, no. Yeah, of course. The average paid out, it was $775,000. So they're not going to come out and say, well, let me tell you then what happened. No, you got paid off, so you can't talk about these things. And that's the... But what does she know? Well, she could talk about who participated and who benefited from the trafficking network. She could say it. She has a list in her head. She could because she was at the property. She's going to say, well, who was at the Little St. James? Who did you see there? I saw that. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, she knows the flight logs. She knows the black lane, the blackmail materials and surveillance. There was a long-standing speculation that they secretly recorded the guests. Where are those files? Now, of course, you would have said that she could have released it, but why would she release, right, the file? Why would she tell you what the files are or the videos? Because she would have been on those videos, then she will make a case worse. That's the reason why she wants, if not clemency, she wants protection. She said, you can't try me for all the things I'm going to say because I didn't talk about these things during the trial because I didn't want to talk about anything because I imagine if I talk about anything, I would have gotten 50 years. So maybe she knows where the archives, the tapes, the CDs, the photos and all that are, but she doesn't want to talk about it, and she's going to talk about it. I want absolution. I want to be completely forgiven that I didn't do anything. And in fact, if you give me the clemency, it's easier because at least I don't, she knows where the materials were stored and why. Don't forget. And this is where it becomes even more complicated. There were international ties and intelligent links. Some investigating journalists and former intelligence officials have suggested Epstein and possibly Maxwell had intelligence connection. Of course they did. When you know that many people, right? Spies get in there and they say, listen, right? Because you have contact with lots of people. And maybe we could find out what's going on. And maybe they found out about him and they didn't want to talk about it and he got played. So you attract all kind of different people. And don't forget one thing. Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was himself long suspected of having ties with multiple intelligence services. And it gets very deep. The reason it gets deep, and I'll tell you why, because I remember his father, because I invested in BAT Industries, and he was a big guy over there at that time, okay? Maxwell, how did he die? He didn't die well, okay? Basically, Robert Maxwell had a mysterious death. November 5th, 1991, British media mogul Robert Maxwell was found dead in the Atlantic Ocean near the Canary Islands. Canary Island is near Spain. He had apparently fallen overboard from his yacht. And you know what the name of the yacht was? Lady Ghislaine, however you pronounce it, after his daughter. The initial Spanish autopsy reports indicated that he died of a heart attack before falling in the water. Okay. The official coroners later ruled his death as the heart attack and lung failure combined with accidental drowning. Well, there was contradictory autopsy conclusions. 3 pathologists differed. One attributed death to heart attack, another heart plus drowning, while the third doubted any heart condition. The timing was Maxwell was facing massive debt and immediate public exposure of corporate fraud, leading many to speculate he may have taken his own life. Of course, there were conspiracy theories linked to international services. Maxwell alleged link to Israeli, British, Soviet. It's messy, right? Whichever one you want to look at it, this thing is very, very messy. It's very messy because we don't know what she. We don't know what she's going to say, right? And when I say we're talking about Trump. You're telling me that all of these people doing all of these things are not somehow intertwined, stained. He fell off his boat. Yeah, she knows no one can keep her hidden if you open some. The thing is, don't forget, she hasn't been sitting in jail doing nothing, right? And this is kind of the strategy. We're not getting too legalistic on you, but right now, what's happening is our lawyers, they want clemency. The administration said it already had released all the pertinent material it could after receiving blowback. So they release everything that they say. But basically, what's happening is she's in the process right now going to the Supreme Court. And once, basically, she's going to Supreme because she wants to revise the case again. And Congress, and she's saying, well, and Congress doesn't want to give her absolution. It doesn't want to give you immunity. James Comer, who sent the subpoena, said in a letter to Maxwell's lawyer on Friday that it did not intend to grant her immunity nor share written questions in advance. However, the committee would delay a deposition until the Supreme Court decides whether to hear or appeal of a conviction. Now, this is very cute what the Republicans are doing. They're basically saying, we want her to testify. Okay, everyone? You heard me. I want her to testify. But at the same time, I'm not going to grant you immunity. Well, why can't you say anything? Well, do you want me to tell you that I cheated on the taxes and I stole the money and I hid it there so that then you're going to add another 10 years to my sentence? Why would I do that? And obviously, the woman is a very smart lawyer because right now, she's now in a very nice, she's at Club Fed. So when the Oversight Committee says in a letter that it did not intend to grant her immunity, so then you don't want anything. She's not going to tell you anything. If you give her immunity, then she can write the book. I don't think she'll get immunity. Well, then she's not going to talk. Why would she say anything? She's going to say, I'm Clay the Fifth. And you can't, don't forget, Biden's doctor claimed the Fifth. And he's fine. I mean, they could have thrown him in jail, I guess, but they didn't. So let's do that. Let's claim the Fifth. And at least you could say, well, you know what? We did the thing we did. She came out. She talked. We went in. We did our thing, right? So what else you want from me? So no, give her immunity. Otherwise, you're not going to, well, I don't know. I mean, now we have to deal with the, no. Okay, so you don't want her to talk then. So you're basically permitting everyone to saying that you want to hear from her, but you're not saying anything really because you know very well she's not going to say anything. We will continue. So Maxwell's lawyer, he appreciated the committee willingness to delay its questioning. We will continue to engage with Congress in good faith to find a way to share information without compromising a constitutional right. So you have to decide. Now, don't forget, this is also very politically driven. Nobody is going to say, I don't want to hear from her because that means that you have something to hide. And of course, in the background, this is a move than just a spiritual war. It's an economic war. It's a social war. Yes, this is, because when I started this channel, right, I wanted to see, okay, because one thing I do notice is you have two things against you. The first one is, when I say the people, right, how do I know what's happening? How do I know where anything is happening? Well, just listen to the news. Well, no, that's not really what's happening. When basically what I mean by that is when, like for example, let's take that specific case. When the guy says that the Congress basically says, I did not intend to grant her immunity, not share written questions in advance, and yet you want her to come and perjure herself. Yes. Do you really think she's going to say? No, of course, it doesn't say that in that article. It basically says that because I'm a Republican, I don't want to give this child molester a free ride, but yet I want to hear what she has so I could show you that I have nothing to hide. But unfortunately, no one is telling you that what I'm telling you, which is basically that then this is it's fake news. I mean, this whole thing is fake. You don't really want to hear from her. You want to tell everyone that you want to hear because you want to show that you have nothing to hide, but you really don't want to. And there is no way in hell with that many people involved that nobody's going to get, name or mention or touch or get dirty. Something is going to happen, of course. And that's the reason I created this channel. And also, forget this kind of news. What about on the financial side? Where do you get your information for news? Okay, you open up, and maybe we should do a video on that, but you go to Bloomberg, and you listen what's happening on Bloomberg, right? And they tell, or CNBC, a bunch of other places, not just, and you could see when the people talk, you could see, I could see the bent either one way or the other, which is great if you like you like the administration, and they tell you, well, the administration is doing great, the stock market is up, the stock market is up, they're going to collect $200 to $300 billion in tariffs. Of course, if you're on the other side, you're not going to mention any of that. What you're going to say is there's going to be a lot of inflation. We don't know when it's going to start. And after all, that's the reason why the Fed chair is doing it. So we have to wait until it happens, even though it's not happening right now. I say, okay, but so then there's nothing in the middle. This is the one way or the other. There's nothing in the middle, because if there's nothing, then that's not information. That's propaganda, because you're basically telling the people what they want to hear. It's like telling kids, there was a Santa Claus. The whole family has been shady. He had ripped off his employee retirement fund. My brother tried to save them. Yes. And so she's, you are who you are with who you are, meaning that she's a shady person. Yeah, obviously you truly believe that she didn't know anything, that this was a big misunderstanding? I don't think so. I don't think it was a misunderstanding. I think she knew exactly what she was doing. The thing is, I think that what's happening is she's obviously having lots of issues right now, and she wants to deal with them, and she's smelling blood, meaning that she realizes, hey, maybe I get away with this. Maybe I actually get away with this, and I am free. Of course, a lot of people, I am sure, very happy that she's stuck and then she can't say anything. Right? Don't forget, her father somehow fell overboard and drowned on a boat by himself. Now, of course, you got to wonder, what were you doing on your boat in the middle of nowhere? Why would you stick around? Why would you just, what was the point of that? So, and that's the reason why you must always question what you hear, when you hear it. I'm not going to mention newspapers or whatever, but I know when I look at the newspapers, I could tell that, you get to decide what's important. I get to decide, tell you what's happening. For example, right now, without naming names, you're saying, well, what I see is that, let's talk about, Trump's AI strategy against China. Okay. Then you're talking about Trump warms embrace. It's getting cold. Okay. So it's all very one-sided, really. There's nothing positive about what Trump does at all. After all, he's going to get lower rates. Don't you want lower rates? He's going to get them. how is he getting them? He's not forcing anyone. He's got two major governor of the Federal Reserve that are basically going to lower the rates. So that's important, isn't it? Don't we want to? So that's good news. But don't you report that? Isn't it good news that how much is the U.S. going to collect? I forgot the amount, but I think, and it's even a better news if how much is the U.S. going to collect in tariff fees. You're going to be amazed at that amount, especially if the U.S., listen to this, is projected to collect around $300 billion in tariff revenue for calendar year 2025, which means some estimate that it could even as high as $600 billion annually with continued tariff enforcement. We're talking $600 billion now. Well, isn't that great news? No, but that's going to be passed on to you're going to pay. Well, so far we haven't seen that. So the U.S. is going to collect $600 billion. That's a lot of money to collect like that. So it's great. What's wrong with this? And you see, that's what I mean. You need to question. And I see the good news about this channel and the people on this channel is that you seem to be people that really want to understand what's happening. Okay? You really need to know. Well, that's the thing, right? DOJ sim racing, 600 million sales tax on America. Well, is it going to be passed to the consumer? Because right now, I could tell you that GM did not pass it to the consumer. Tariffs are paid initially by U.S. importers, which is true. However, economic evidence consistently showed these risks are largely shifted onto U.S. firms and final consumer via higher prices. But how much, Walmart has raised some price, yes. How much is being passed down so far? And this is what we need to discuss. This is what you need to understand, because otherwise we're just talking, assumptions. According to Harvard Business School, retailers have raised prices only slightly and immediately following the tariff announcement. So the full burden doesn't fully hit consumer yet. Deutsche Bank reports that importers are still absorbing much of the cost, though reducing profit margin, but consumer price hikes are becoming more evident. Right now, it's not happening. And what do you think it's not? It is not. Barron estimate that shows that 25% of tariff costs were passed through the consumer by June, up from 15%. Budget Lab project that 2025 tariffs combined could raise consumer price 2 to 3% to 38% average annual loss per household. The amount of money is going to the U.S., but it's not coming to the U.S. people, the conversion. Actually, I believe that Trump wants to share the tariff money to the taxpayers. Yeah, Trump has suggested distributing some tariff revenue directly as rebates to taxpayers. Isn't that something? In July, we're thinking in July 2025 about a little rebate. But the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate. The goal is to partially offset. I mean, think about what he just said, right? We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing is we want to pay down the debt. I mean, Okay, so let's say you collect 600 billion. You owe 37 trillion with a rebate. Well, remember there was supposed to be a rebate for with the Doge, right? The Doge rebate, $5,000 because all the money they found. The goal is partially, but this is typical Trump speech, right? We are thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down. So are you thinking, but you want to pay down debt? You're 37 trillion. $37 trillion is 37,000. It's 37,000 billion. 37,000 billion. And you're going to collect 600 billion, technically. I mean, let's see. 37,000 versus 600. And you're actually going to take the 600. I hope you're right. Auditing on my Doge check. Still waiting for the Doge check. Yes, sure. I mean, this is when you say things like that, okay, so what? You're going to give the check to, you're going to pay down 600 billion. The goal is to partially offset the price hike caused by the tariffs and give relief to Americans facing higher costs. That's different. Yeah, because there, what you want to do is, according to the Tax Foundation, the best way to provide relief is to repeal tariffs, not offer tariff rebate checks. Of course, the Tax Foundation is really, biased. Now, is it going to happen? We shall see. The proposed tariff rebates would function similarly to economic impact payments in COVID-19. Remember COVID? The rebate credit would be claimed in advance of filing. It would raise about 150 billion revenue. The tariff has raised about 150 in this year. That's a fact, and will likely raise more. While tariff have raised costs, so yeah, I mean, in that case, give it to the people. Have them collect the money. Tariffs are not an efficient way to raise revenue because import falls as tariff increase. The thing also you have to realize is as you're doing this, these people whoever is paying for it is probably not going to order as much. And that's the idea between the 500%. Trump will pardon her. Well, Allison, you might have a case here because that's exactly the concern, because he did say that. I believe that he said that what did I think Trump said that Trump said about the pardon. I remember it was of Maxwell. I think he said that. I mean, he didn't say he was going to pardon her, but he's going to pardon PDD, by the way. He confirmed, this is to answer Allison's questions, he confirmed that he has the authority to pardon Maxwell, but emphasized that nobody asked him to do so. I'm allowed to give a pardon. Nobody even asked me to do it. Right now, it would be inappropriate to talk about it. He also reiterated that he has not actively considered a pardon, signaling restraint. So this came during she's serving a 20-year sentence. So Trump's statement maintains a legal baseline. They'll leave open the possibility of future pardon decision. But he would say he was going to pardon P. Diddy. I guess he knew him better. And the thing is, it's going to depend for the pardon, quite frankly, right? It depends what she knows and what she's willing to share. And for a pardon, for clemency, she's going to hold off. Now, what I want to know is, don't forget, she spent 9 hours with Blanche, right, last week, and she named 100 names. Can we know what those names are? And the longer these things happen, the longer you don't know what's happening, the more people are going to wonder there is some sort of a situation going on, and therefore we're having a problem here. You're hiding something from us. And if you're hiding something from us, I mean, there's something to be hidden. So Allison might be right? They are probably going to pardon her. The only thing is, by giving clemency, it's a problem, the clemency, because she could say anything she wants. So before I talk, I want to make sure that whatever I say, I cannot go to jail for it, right? Okay. Trump did it. You wanted to know? Yep, he was there and he had a great time too. Whoa, you can't, really? Unless you know you didn't do anything. And frankly, I think Trump is at the stage right now that I don't think he cares. You're going to go to jail? No. He probably had nothing to do with it, so that's what he's saying. The thing is, it's not so much him that has to be worried. He said, well, hold on, don't do that. Because if you do this, and him and her and him and her, no, forget, doesn't have to be sexual things. It could be a bunch of different things. Don't forget that he was involved in a lot of, he's guilty. We'll see, Ellie. He's guilty. Innocent people don't behave the way he's been behaving. See, that's the thing, right? People are seeing that and saying, this doesn't sound right. This doesn't feel right. There's something wrong with this situation. Therefore, he has something to hide. No, it's just the appearance of the thing, right? So Trump, at the end of the day, doesn't really care. It's the people around him that may care. And like I was saying, that if you understand the Epstein case, for example, let me tell you that with Epstein having $50 million in cash when he died, and over $600 million in estimated net worth, what do you think you do with that kind of money? Do you remember, I don't know if you know, but Epstein was, for example, involved, forget the girls, he was involved in a lot of different things. And that means that he was involved in a Ponzi scheme. I know that. I remember. He was involved in a Ponzi scheme. And so, basically a Ponzi scheme is, you remember Bernie Madoff, right? He was involved in that too. So basically, in the early 80s and 90s, basically there was a company called Towers Financial Corporation, which operated the largest Ponzi scheme in U.S. history prior to Madoff. What does that mean? It means he was involved with a bunch of shady characters, defrauding investors of over $475 million. He was personally hired Epstein as a consultant in 1987. He later alleged that Epstein played a key role in setting up the scheme and used the stolen funds to seed capital for Epstein's own operation. Epstein claimed was totally in the mix and worked closely with him. No criminal charges were ever brought against Epstein for his scheme. So this is not sexual, right? This is something else. He asserted that Epstein informed prosecutors about his involvement. Epstein was never indicted or convicted. How? Now, Offenberg, by the way, he was Stephen Offenberg. He went to jail, but Epstein didn't. Because why? He was a disgraced financier, and basically he died in 2022. He was found dead in Connecticut. He served 18 years in prison, this guy, while Epstein didn't. Right? That's amazing that Epstein got away with it, literally. Epstein got away from that one too. He didn't get away for the last one. And he did, and he said, but Epstein was involved too. And in fact, he's the one that set it up. Why did he get anything? He was the architect of the scam. The money he stole from Towers was the foundation of the fortune, despite the accusation. Why no court? Why I don't know the case that well. I want to find out for you, but why not? Because I mean, it's hard to believe that he was never charged despite 6 years of break. While publicly accused Epstein, or he never produced verified documents, email, contract. Epstein operated informally as a consultant. His name did not appear anywhere. So you tell me that this guy is that cautious, he's going to have a list of the people involved? Legal analysts suspect flipped on Offenberg and cooperated with federal prosecutor. Yeah, may have shielded him from indictment. I think that's what happened. He probably caught off on him and got away with it. So imagine that you have Ghislaine Maxwell with you. So she's probably having the same kind of thinking, and she's probably saying, listen, you know what? I need something. I mean, she was with him for so many years. Notably, told media was the guy who told on me during the SEC, and the guy did 18 years, and then he came out and he died. I mean, 18 years in jail, it's going to be tough to take for a finance guy. So that's the issue that we're having right now, right? Is what does she know, when does she know, and what is she going to do and say? And right now, where is she? She is she has been transferred to a lower security prison facility. They're calling it Club Fed. They're calling it Club Fed. And the reason they call it Club Fed, because there's not much to do. That's amazing. That's all I have to say. And I think that what we should do is we have to be careful with this case, because a lot of people want to know what happened. A lot of people want to see what happened. And more importantly, the MAGA people want to know what happened. Their supporters, you have to understand that Trump called the Epstein furor an hoax, right? It's a hoax, and suggested that this political enemy might have planted his name in the files. So the names are held by Justice Department. The Journal previously reported that Attorney General Pam Bondi informed Trump, and that's the thing. The Wall Street Journal basically told everyone in May, recently, that his name is among many in the Epstein file. It's incredible how quickly you had. Nobody heard about it for a while, right? And then Elon Musk says, hey, the name is in the file. And then everybody start talking, and then everything start to happen at the same time. And then the Congress comes in and they want to talk about it, and everybody it snowballed, and then they want to talk to her, and then she's talking, and now she's going to a different place. She's going to a new facility, and the House Speaker basically said, we're not going to have a vote right now because it's a little confusing. We are going to go we're going to go home for a while, and then we're going to come back, and then we're going to have a vote. I mean, if you know anything about finance, you need to understand that there's a lot of people involved in all the things that he did. When do we get the file? Somewhere on the file. Do you think it'll be doctored? Can they doctor the file? Well, when we're saying the file, right? You can't doctor the. I mean, there's too many eyes on this thing, and it's a problem. Maybe they basically said, like, they're telling her, hey, listen, tell us what's going on, but we don't give you absolution, knowing we don't give you immunity, knowing that you're not going to say anything. Well, I ask, and if she doesn't want to, it's not up to me. But basically, what Congress there's a lot of documents, right? So the documents that Congress can actually request, we're talking prosecution records, right? Non-privileged. So you have indictments, sentencing memorandum, trial exhibits. And then when you look at the stuff, the videos I've seen partying with Trump, when they look at all this is a comment from Ben, when we look at all the stuff, there's going to be names. He's going to say, oh, I didn't know you were there. And, oh, you appear here. Oh, that's interesting. For the indictment, the sentencing, the trial exhibits, even Markowitz, Dershowitz himself said it. He said that there were names. I can't talk about it. but they were names. I have seen the names. So Epstein, you could see the Epstein Maxwell client or co-conspirator information. Any DOJ or FBI record identify alleged client or co-conspirators can be subpoenaed. Many people on the islands, I'll bet a handful of them, a handful of them were totally innocent. Well, yeah, but that's the thing, right? I mean, and this is where we have laws. You can't just say, "Well, I was on grassy knoll. I didn't kill Kennedy. I was around. I mean, I was looking." You know what I mean? If you know what I'm referring to. But in that case, but this guy, obviously, you could see, right? He was involved in a Ponzi scheme. He was involved in all these things, and she's involved, and they know very well the way it works. Nobody wants to get involved. Now remember that people gave a lot of money to Epstein. There was a relationship between Epstein and the Limited. You know the store, the Limited. I mean, and this is amazing that somebody could be involved in that, and the girls and the Limited, and basically, I will tell you that we're referring to Les Wexner, right? Epstein became the personal financing manager for Leslie Wexner, founder of the Limited. So now you're in retail in the late 80s. Again, right after the whole thing with the Ponzi scheme. Though never formally employed by the company. Again, he was not formally employed by the Ponzi scheme either. So why are you talking to this guy for? He managed Wexner's vast personal fortune and held power of attorney over his financial affairs by 1991. Right? By the mid-90s, Epstein was overseeing major aspects of his portfolio, influencing real estate. So now you are like a wealth manager? Deeply embedded in works. He was involved in everything, not just here, everything. He had total control. Why? He falsely posed as a talent recruiter for Victoria's Secret. By the way, that's a link. Reported gaining access to models. In one documented case, Alicia Arden alleged that she lured her to a hotel room. The Victoria's Secret agent, Angel and Demon, explored these claims, highlighting Einstein used to cover as a predator. Well, that could explain why he was there, but then why did the guy allow him to do it? Never formally employed Epstein. So, and what happened to Leslie Wexner? Because eventually he had to say, no, I don't know. Right? It's a very, very strange behavior that seems to indicate he's an American billionaire, better known founder of the Limited, but I think he's the former parent company of Victoria's Secret, Bed Bath & Beyond, Bath Body Works. He's worth $6 billion, and he basically 2020 retired. He's gone. I said that's enough. He grew the Limited from a single store. He acquired. So he was a major guy, and it all went away. So we have to be careful. Take care. Yes. I have to go too, guys, as well. And then next we're going to talk about China, the China situation. But let's follow this very closely because I think that is important to understand. And we know that we need not the truth, but at least what's going on. So next is going to be the Chinese situation. I want to talk about the fact that we have 3 Fed chair, by the way. That's kind of weird. And another one's going to come in. So you're definitely going to have low rate cuts. So everyone, thank you very much. I will see you very soon.